I am going to start this dynamic simulation tutorial off with a discussion of Ncloth, because I think that Ncloth gives a really good idea of what the N-dynamic system is all about. It's got great visual feedback, and you will have a lot of fun with this. We are going to make a flag blowing in the wind. It's going to be easy, it's going to be fun. You're going to say, why don't I do this for everything? So just remember that dynamic simulation always takes a lot of processing power, and it doesn't always give you immediate updates. So if you're going to use this for something like a cloak or a dress or somebody's clothing, it may not respond exactly the way that you want, and it takes a lot of tweaking to get right. Now, with that said, there are just a couple of things that we want to do to get started anytime we're working with any sort of dynamic simulation, if that's N-dynamics like we're doing today, MASH, Bfrost, XGen, whatever. The first thing that we want to do is go into the little man running away from the gear wheel, and we're going to change our playback speed. I think play every frame is probably going to be good with a max setting of 24 FPS. You can also do this, if I save here, by right-clicking on the timeline and under playback speed setting this to play every frame, max real time. Anytime you're doing dynamic simulation, the computer can't necessarily process 24 frame per second animation while it's calculating all of the dynamics. Playing every frame allows the computer a little more leniency in the way that it processes animation playback. So this makes it easier for your computer. This is a nice thing to do. So make sure that your playback speed is set to play every frame, max real time. The next thing that we're going to need for our flag simulation is a flag. So I'm going to go ahead and make a polygon primitive plane. All of your N-dynamics will work with any kind of polygonal geometry, so a plane should be fine. I'm going to make that a little bigger so it's easier to see. And N-dynamics like to have a lot of geometry, so I will just make this 50 by 50. If you want your flag to be a different shape, go right ahead. I'm going to leave mine square. And before I put it on a flagpole, I'm just going to move it up the y-axis a little bit so that I can turn it into Ncloth and talk about what Ncloth does and what Ncloth can do. So to make something into Ncloth, all I have to do is go to the Ncloth menu and say Create Ncloth. And now, when I hit the play button, even though I've done no animation at all, my plane falls gracefully down the y-axis. The reason for that is that now, in addition to just being a polygon plane, if I go over to my attribute editor, you'll see that it's also got this thing called an output cloth. The output cloth connects it over to this Ncloth1 node. The Ncloth1 node is this thing right here, and that is connected to this thing called a nucleus. The nucleus starts out with gravity of 9.8 meters per second, and gravity travels in the negative y direction. That's standard Earth gravity. If you want to change this, you can. If you're working on some kind of outer space simulation, go for it. Nothing wrong with that. In the nucleus, I also have the ability to adjust for something called wind speed. Let's give it a little wind speed, and let's put in some wind noise just so that you can see something that isn't a cloth falling straight down. And now I've got a little bit of wind resistance, and I've got all of these beautiful ripples, and because my wind direction is in positive 1x, I'm actually going in the negative x direction, it looks like. But who am I to judge? So that's what the nucleus does. The nucleus gives me gravity built right into the simulation. It gives me air density, wind, and wind noise. I also have the ability to click Use Plane, and that will take the origin axis and use it as a ground plane, so now my little flag will only fall so far. Gracefully down, and then it hits the ground. You can see it flatten out and roll along the ground like it's being affected by a high wind. Lovely. If you don't like the origin axis, you can change the origin plane. It's set to 0, 0, 0. That's X, Y, and Z. You can change that. You can change the normal. You can also give the plane bounce, friction, and stickiness. So N dynamics comes from the idea that as soon as I turn something into a piece of Ncloth, I get this nucleus node, and the nucleus node will allow me to use gravity, wind, and even a ground plane built right into the deformation. So I'm going to pause here and let you play around with your own initial Ncloth. When I come back, I will start a new Ncloth and I'll turn it into a flag on a flagpole.